Hello everyone. Today we start coding, and we will create a React application using Vite. First of all, what is React? React is a library useful for writing interactive user interfaces. We won't delve into it now. It's part of the curriculum, and we will constantly analyze it and do practical things with it. But React is just a library. We still need something to build our front-end application. And for this, I suggest using the Vite experiment. Basically, it's something that will allow us to conveniently develop our front end. And when we develop it, it's convenient to build and deliver to end users. I won't dive too deep into the theory here either. I'll just mention some alternatives. Alternatives to React are Vue, Angular, and React is Svelte. Vue, in my opinion, is too simple. Angular is too complicated. And I don't know much about Svelte, but I can say that in practice, React is very convenient. If you understand it, it allows you to create the most maintainable and readable web applications. If anyone is more interested in a comparative analysis of these frameworks and libraries, I'll leave some additional resources, tutorial videos. But, as I mentioned earlier, our tutorial is purely practical, and therefore I will focus more on how to do the right things using the proposed technologies. Okay? Well, let's slowly get started. So we need to create a Vite application using React. You can go to Getting Started and see what they offer here. They say they have it. Possibly integrate with many things, excluding React. We are interested in React with TypeScript, and to do this, they suggest using one of these commands. We use pnpm, and you can also pass the simple eyes we need. All right, let's get started. So, basically, we need to create a folder for our project. Our educational project is called Idianic. Here's our folder. Now we need to open it in VS Code. So code Idianic. Open, opened. Now we need to run the terminal. There will be a separate lesson on hotkeys and other topics, but the main thing is how to launch this terminal. That's all. The terminal is running. Good. And now we need one command to create an application. Enter the menu. We'll create a Vite app called Web App. With simple react.ts. It says it's already created. Now we have a folder named Web App. Why the files were created not in the root, and that's good for us because we'll have a backend, and there will be shared code between backend and frontend. Let everything be in its own folder, right? Like this. Now we need to go to it. For this, there's the cd command. Cd is to navigate, go to Web App, entered. And now let's take a look at the files that were created. After that, we will try to run the created application, open it in the browser, change something in the code, and see how the running application reacts to it. That is, all we need is to look, touch a little. So, well, let's start with package.json. Package.json is the file that defines all the dependencies in our application, as well as some additional settings. We will return to it more than once. There is something important to see what dependencies are there. He created React, took types for React, and much more. All right. Then there's readme.md. We absolutely don't need it. It's some documentation here, which in theory we should write for our own project, but here it's just some default. Next, we have TypeScript. It created a config file for TypeScript. Again, we'll dive deeply into these files later in the tutorial. This is just a high-level overview. So here, in general, are the settings for how TypeScript should behave. Why is there a second file with TypeScript settings? Because, in essence, when our project is built and becomes the final JS, which we deliver to browsers for clients, it requires different settings. When we work with our standalone Vite, it's locally kind of only server-side code, doing something which requires different configurations. We'll get back to it later. Then there's the Vite config itself, and it's currently maximally primitive. It just states that there are some plugins. And there are some plugins. It uses them. Our file will grow significantly in the future, and we'll see if we can do something tricky and interesting. As you can see, our code editor is currently complaining that it can't find something because we didn't follow the instructions given by Vite. It now asks us to navigate to cd no web app and install the packages that are listed in the package JSON. Let's do this so our code editor stops complaining. pnpm install, or simply the installation has started. Let's move on while it's installing. There's an index.html file here, which will presumably be served to our users later. In general, all our applications basically consist of index.html, index.js, and index.css. These three files will eventually contain all our code and will be inserted into this file. This index.html is not as simple as regular HTML. In fact, it also undergoes some transformation later on, which we'll look into. See here, it imports mine.tnx from the src folder. But in fact, this is a TypeScript file. Actually, TypeScript can't run in the browser. It must run as JS. So during the build of our application via Vite, this file will still be changed. It will import the generated JS file. So it's essentially a template for the index.html file, you could say. All right, the files are installed. Let's go see if there are any errors now. Now there are no errors. Everything is good. Everything is installed. Then there's git ignore. We'll discuss git in literally the next lesson. But here it's just specified what shouldn't be saved in the git repository during our development. Then there's slint. Slint is a tool that allows us to monitor our code style and ensure it always meets some standards we set via this file. We'll cover all this in each separate lesson. Then there's the public folder, which just contains files that will be served to our client as they are. So, you can upload various images here, or fonts. Then there's the src folder, in which we'll mostly be working. It has a folder named assets. See? And here is an SVG image, and here is another SVG image. If the images are in public, they are distributed as is, and then they will still end up in the public folder, but in a smarter way during the project build. Then there is the file white.ft.ts. We never need to edit it. It's just some kind of type thing needed for white, so you can ignore it. Then there's mine.tsx. You could say it's our main file, where the whole application starts because, as we saw, it's imported in index.tml. It's the starting point. And here is the standard React structure. Again, no sense in analyzing it in detail. It's enough to understand that there is an element with ID root somewhere. Here it is. And you need to load our app into it. Our app is in app.txt. Looking at app.tsx, here is some preset code provided by the template authors. All right, and as we can see, files are called here from react.log, white.log, and app.tx. Well, in app.tsx there are some CSS styles. We'll remove it soon because we're going to use SCSS instead. There's an index CSS too with some more global styles, which are imported into main. Well, actually, we've already looked at all the code elements. Yes, we will look deeper later. Let's try to run it now and see how it looks. Here's how to launch it. For development, it needs to be run using the def script. How to run a script from a package in a JSON file. We type pnpm and the script name pnpm def. There, it launched successfully. Let's copy. URL, go to the browser, paste the link, or simply click on it. There's something. All right, so it's running, it's working. We're absolutely satisfied with that. Let's change something to make sure it updates online in our browser. Let's look in app.tsx, React White 1 plus React 2. Saved and in the browser, everything is as it should be. Great, great, good. Something has changed. Well, let's see what other commands are here from KG Sony. Look, you can build it. What does build mean? It means preparing it directly for delivery to our end users. Let's create a new terminal window and build it here. pnpm build. So we got a reprimand. Because we're not in the web app folder. Web app folder. pnpm build. Okay, build. Built. See, the dist folder appeared. Let's see what's in it. And here's the index.html file. But you see, it's different now. It used this index.html as a base and changed everything it needed. Here it left dev.side.root and included the necessary JS files. You see index.js with some gibberish. The gibberish is needed because, with each build, the file name would be different, and it wasn't cached. Okay? And in the assets folder, here is our index.js, where everything was included. Our index.css, where everything was included. As we can see, React was in the assets folder, and since it was in assets, it's added like this. And Vite was just in the public folder, and that's why it landed in the root. How? Images are pulled in. Where and why they go, we'll also cover in the relevant lesson. Well, here's another command. Actually, this dist, an index.html, can just be opened in the browser, and it will work there as well, without any auto-refresh during coding. To view it, there's the preview command. We can use pnpm. Let's stop the process. To stop the process, it's Ctrl-C. We've stopped the process here, so let's try pnpm preview. Now, it should be on another port. Open it too. See, it's the same app, but it's built. Yeah, it's literally the same index.html file that we just looked at. All right. Well, maybe just note the alternatives to Vite. There's the popular Create React app, some official React 1, officially Facebook's, but it's not very convenient because it's hard to customize. There are third-party libraries for its customization, but they are unofficial. You can use Webpack directly, but it's super complicated. There's also the popular Next.js, but I just don't like Next.js. With it, development is slower and the advantages it offers, I personally don't feel. All right, that's it. We figured it out. Let's move on. Thanks, everyone.